We're an island nation, drawn to the sea that surrounds us. For many, it's a playground. For others, it's where we earn our living. But the sea's unpredictable. It can change in an instant. And when accidents happen, they happen very fast.
On the sea, you have to expect the unexpected. It will just turn around and bite you.
Mayday! Mayday!
There to save our lives is a volunteer army of nearly 5,000 ordinary people.
When the pager goes off, we don't know what the shout is, where it is, how many people are involved. It could be anything.
Well, where do you feel the pain, Alex?
My back and my leg and my neck.
Stuart, just hold the boat!
I am so thankful that they came.
Things could have turned out to be a lot worse.
I've had people drown in front of me. Before we've got there, that person's gone.
Calm down, you're okay, pal.
Equipped with their own cameras,
My light flashing. Yeah, mine.
the crews give us a unique insight into every call-out as only they see it. Speeding through the roughest weather, searching for people who may only have moments to live.
Go!
For those who risk their lives, it has become a way of life.
The decisions we make on a lifeboat, it can all mean the difference between life or death.
In the southwest of England, the rocky north coast of Cornwall and Devon stretches over 200 miles. Guarding these waters are 13 lifeboat stations that every winter are kept busy by the storms that roll in from the Atlantic.
Never forget, the sea is the boss. You'll never beat it. You can only sort of hope to try and get along with it. But never ever think you're invincible and you'll beat the sea, because you'll always come off second best with it.
The fishing town of Padstow has had a lifeboat since 1826. Some of the crew here have 4 generations of service in their blood.
First was my great-grandfather, Nathaniel England, who was on the crew in the late 1800s and early 1900s. My grandfather was on the crew for a very short while. My dad joined the crew as soon as he was old enough, and he served for 38 years on the crew altogether, and he finished up as coxswain before he retired.
Across the generations, crew members sign up for many different reasons. But when they pull on the yellow wellies, they all face the same risks out at sea.
Good morning, this is the shipping forecast issued by the Met Office on behalf of the Maritime and Coast Guard Agency. Seoul, Lundy, Fastnet, northwest 5 to 7, occasionally gale 8 later in Seoul.
A January day, Storm Henry has just hit the UK. Winds gusting 90 miles an hour are causing widespread devastation. The Coast Guard receive a Mayday call, the highest level of emergency at sea. A large cargo ship, the Verity, has lost engine power. She's adrift just 8 miles offshore with 7 crew on board, and the storm is forcing her towards the dangerous rocky coast of North Devon.
We had her updated position from the Coast Guard, and we knew that she was drifting at 2 knots. And at 4 hours, she could well be ashore at Hartland Point. So, you know, we might be nearly 2 hours to get there. Your margins are getting very narrow.
For the fastest response possible, the 2 closest stations, Padstow and Appledore, both launched their Tamar-class all-weather lifeboats.
The sea conditions changed, you know, in an instant. One minute we were in reasonably calm waters, the next minute we were climbing up mountains, it seemed, you know.
The crew from Appledore, the station to the north, are soon hitting the storm head-on.
It was probably blowing maybe an 8, something like that, and there was some pretty big seas with some fairly large swells. Pretty much strong enough to blow you off your feet. I think it's probably the best way to describe it.
Steve, we got about half an hour to run. It's a touch gnarly, eh?
We were actually heading out when the boats were coming in for shelter. So I was thinking, you know, they've got the right idea, we've got the wrong idea. Let's go back, but of course, you can't go back. You got to keep going. And I thought, well, I'm here for the ride now. Someone out there needed our help, so of course we're going to do everything we could to make that happen.
After 2 hours ploughing through the huge seas, both lifeboats arrive on the scene.
Yeah, tell him we'll have a try. Tell him we'll be coming up the Verity starboard side because he's on the port.
And then it dawned on me what kind of a rescue this was. For me, seeing Verity for the first time, I couldn't believe how big she was.
What are we actually going to do to that that's going to affect it?
Without her engines, the 90-metre, 2,600-ton Verity is completely at the mercy of the sea.
She'd moved all the way through the night. She was progressively going up the coast.
She acts like a big sail on the sea. She turns sort of broadside to the wind and then just gets blown along.
The Verity and her crew have now drifted to within 6 miles of the North Devon coast.
A vessel of that size would have fuel tanks carrying tens of thousands of litres of fuel. It would be an environmental disaster.
The only way to stop the Verity drifting onto the rocky shore is to tow her out of danger. But even getting a tow line attached is a risky manoeuvre.
You know, the rise and fall of a boat that size and our stern trying to throw a heaving line, the potential there for collision is huge.
You can get literally sucked in towards a bigger vessel and there's not much you can do about it.
The Padstow crew managed to get a line attached on the first attempt. Now they try to turn the Verity into the wind and tow her out of danger. But the cargo-laden ship weighs over 200 times the small 32-ton Tamar-class lifeboat.
The biggest danger, no matter what the tow is the rope is under tension, and if it was to part, then it can spring back.
You don't put your fingers near it, you don't get your legs near it. You try and be even more safer than you'd normally be because of the circumstances, to be honest.
The Tamar's twin 1,000-horsepower engines are just managing to hold the Verity. But the lifeboat and its equipment are being pushed to their absolute limits.
Yeah, the tow rope was starting to melt around the post through friction. Put the fire hydrant on to keep it cool, and then we pull in so much, because obviously we let that bit burn and then pull in a bit.
They've established the tow and they're not making any headway whatsoever.
To the Padstow crew's dismay, under the extreme pressure, the tow line snaps. With every minute that passes, the Verity drifts closer to the rocky shoreline of Hartland Point.
Get her out the wind, yeah? Yeah, just turn around. If we can get her to go north, it'll make it so easier for us, sure.
After 7 hours at sea, in a last-ditch attempt to save the ship, the two lifeboat coxswains come up with a radical idea. Both boats will tow the Verity, in the hope it will be enough to stop her drift.
Appledore would tow Padstow, and Padstow would tow up the Verity, so both Padstow and Appledore lifeboats will have the same power and join the power together enough to pull Verity out of danger.
Like a conga line of towing.
Both lines are attached in the increasing swell.
The boat was up and down, up and down. We were like getting thrown across the deck that morning.
When you were stood up, there was no way that you could keep your balance and handle the ropes and stuff that you needed to do. So it was very much a case of getting down on all fours and really holding on quite tight, to be honest.
We didn't know if it was going to work, but we had to do something. We couldn't just sit there.
Slowly, the Verity starts to turn.
So we got our bow towards the wind rather than the side of the vessel. So it stopped her drifting at quite a significant rate.
think we were all pleasantly surprised that the two small lifeboats were able to kind of manoeuvre and pull the Verity round into wind, and also for it to be able to hold station.
The unorthodox towing method seems to have been a success.
Sit tight then, we'll sit tight up here as well.
But against the power of the wind and the waves, the lifeboats are fighting a losing battle.
It's a lot to tow. You know, we have got 2,000 horsepower, but it's a big old boat to try and tow.
Steve, can you get a message to Padstow and just tell her we're going to try and keep towing her very slow like this?
All the lifeboats can do is slow down the Verity's drift towards the rocks.
It was pretty critical that we found another method of moving this vessel further away from the shore, really.
We were just holding her off until help came, really.
After nearly 12 hours at sea, finally help arrives. In the shape of a Dutch warship.
Dutch naval ship came to save the day.
Quite a nice thing to see that coming in the distance, a big old lump.
For the last 2 hours, the 144-metre frigate De Ruyter has been steaming through the Force 8 gale to offer assistance.
It is the unwritten rule of the sea, is, you know, if you're in a position to help, that you give help. We wouldn't like to think that the skipper of the Verity has got a warship on speed dial.
Can you talk to the ship? Yeah, I'll try to, yeah.
One thing that sort of stuck out, talking to the captain, his voice over the radio was a picture of absolute calmness.
The Verity had been heading to the north coast of Spain, carrying 3,000 tons of scrap metal, when her engines failed and she lost all power.
Oh, that was looking very bad. Things were looking very bad for quite a while. We couldn't get the engine going. Oh no, there was more negatives than positives. And the way the weather was, no, it didn't look, it was very serious. When we see the lifeboats, it did make us feel a little bit better that we're not out there on our own. Oh, they did more good than they thought they did.
After several attempts, the Dutch warship manages to get a line across to the coaster.
I mean, the sheer size of the tow rope on the warship was just colossal.
A bit like a Russian doll effect, really, isn't it? You know, there's a big Dutch warship, then a 90-metre coaster, then a 16-metre orange lifeboat. You can fit them all in each other, I should think. You just want a dinghy to go with it, you've got a full set. Yeah.
Finally, the Verity is safe. The lifeboat crews have now been at sea for over 14 hours, and the extreme conditions are beginning to take their toll.
How are you feeling, Duncan?
I've got nothing left to give.
Owen, our coxswain, started handing out these little things, and at first I thought, what's Owen handing out? I was hoping it was a bag of sweets, but no, turned out to be sick bags.
I was sick. I think we're all human. I certainly wasn't the only one that night or that day that was a little bit ill.
I don't think we did have any sick bags in the end because some had to catch it in their hand, so it wasn't pleasant. Plus, with the smell and rough seas, it wasn't the best place to be at the time.
The exhausted Padstow crew finally get to head back to their station. The Appledore lifeboat stays with the Dutch warship as it tows the Verity to shelter in the lee of Lundy Island over 12 miles north.
We were just basically acting as an escort in case anything went wrong, anybody went over the side.
The Appledore boat remains with the Verity until a tug arrives to tow it into port for repairs.
So I was just ecstatic because we were moving 3 knots ahead. Every knot we were doing, every 20 minutes we were underway, we were getting further from Hartland Point. Then we felt safe.
We were out at sea the best part of 18 hours. Just us on that one trip. The total combined shout was just under 36 hours.
Anyone who says they don't come home tired after 14 hours at sea in a lifeboat's a liar. So, you know, it does take it out of you, to be honest, especially as you get older, it does, yeah.
Never been tested like that before. I suppose we always get tested every call out we get. They're all different for different reasons, and they test us in different ways. That one was particularly challenging because of the sea conditions and the type of call-out it was.
On that shout, I did think a couple of times, what am I doing here? I could be tucked up in bed, in the warm. But, you know, someone's in need, so you just gotta do what you gotta do.
This isn't the worst Atlantic storm the Padstow crew have faced. On the 11th of April 1900, the town's lifeboat was launched into gale-force winds. The trawler Peace and Plenty was in grave danger off the coast. Padstow's open rowing boat, the Arab, was launched to help. The second coxswain was mechanic Mike's great-grandfather.
They were hit by a sea and swamped, and most of the oars were smashed and several of them were washed over the side. They all managed to stay with the boat and were washed ashore on the rock side of the estuary, and they all clambered up the rocks and were safe. The steam lifeboat, the James Stephens, was launched, and she was capsized by a heavy sea, and of the crew, I think was about 12, only 3 survived, the rest were all lost. They were brave men. They would have run from Padstow down to Cove in the clothes they stood up in, put on cork life jackets and rowed out to sea. Those were brave men. That's what you call brave. If you think of it as risking your lives at sea, we do it to help other people who are in trouble. You know, simple as that. You know, if someone's in trouble, a lifeboat crew will come and try and help you.
Over 400 miles away on the exposed coast of eastern Scotland, Anstruther was once the country's herring capital. Today, the town's small fishing fleet still heads out into the unpredictable waters of the North Sea.
It's a beautiful place to live, a beautiful place to stay, but it is on the North Sea, so we do get some quite horrible conditions sometimes.
These days, Anstruther has a population of just 3,600.
As a close-knit community, most people know each other and knows your family, knows your granny, knows your great... everyone knows everyone.
Everyone does know everyone's business, yeah, that's why I try and keep quiet.
George is one of Anstruther's younger volunteers. He joined up when he was just 17.
I've had a pager for 8 years now. I've had one. Well, my pager's definitely the smartest. It's nice and metallic, better looking than everyone else's.
When he's not on a shout, George is on shift at a local aluminium paint factory.
Whenever I get a shout when I'm at work, I kind of get sort of silver round my face, so I get called a tin man quite often when I go out and shouts.
For George, joining the lifeboat crew provided its own lifeline.
I wasn't the best behaved kid. I was quite bad at school. Got kicked out of school a couple of times. I joined Lifeboat right after I left school, straight away, pretty much. Becoming a Lifeboat volunteer has been huge in my life. It's changed my life massively. I don't know where I would be if I hadn't done this. It helps your confidence when you go out and shout, when you go out in the boat. Knowing that you can do that, it does make you more confident in yourself, yeah. Since joining the crew, I've known that I do really like helping folk. It's something that I like to do. I'm proud to be on the boat, yeah, I am proud to be on the boat, yeah.
A bright but breezy September day. The Coast Guard calls out the Anstruther crew. A woman has fallen down a cliff on one of the most dangerous parts of their patch.
The biggest concern would be, I suppose, that it's just falling from quite a height and they can be in quite a bad way sometimes.
George is the first to get into a dry suit.
If you're alright with two, just go on. I'll just go. We can ID you something wrong. Right on.
Both Anstruther's lifeboats are launched.
I'm just going to go with two. Just going to go with two.
Novice helm George is assigned the smaller, more manoeuvrable D-class and hits the water first. The larger Mersey-class all-weather lifeboat follows straight after, carrying extra medical supplies.
Head down.
head down for the wind.
The casualty has fallen on the chain walk. Lying nearly 7 miles down the coast from Anstruther, it's made up of steel chains bolted into the cliff face. Using these chains, adventurous walkers can scramble along a steep rocky section of the coastal path.
The chain walk is infamous in that there have been a number of issues in terms of people getting injured.
It's quite challenging. I would say 80% of the call-outs that we have to the chain walk are people that has just been hugely unlucky.
A Coast Guard rescue team and paramedics are also heading to the cliffs. But the D-Class's young crew, George and Harry, will be the first on the scene.
It's the first climb. I think the first climb's here.
Just over 7 minutes after launching, they approach the chain walk. Their first challenge is to locate the casualty amongst the cliffs and rocky ledges.
It was really difficult to try and find them. When you get a description of the chain walk, it's probably 300 metres long, so they can be anywhere in that point. You've just got to try and go in, start at one end and work your way along to the other.
That's it there.
That part of the chain walk is really remote. There's nothing either side of you. The nearest road would probably be, as the crow flies, 3/4 of a mile.
After a brief search, George spots someone in a small rocky cove. But the only way in is a narrow, dangerous channel.
I can get in up there to this rock there. I'm not a big fan of the swell, eh?
The swell seemed to sort of pick up a wee bit. It wasn't very wide, and there was a lot of rocks.
I think what I'll do, Harry, is I might have to put you up on this rock here. If you just walk round to it, yeah? There's nowhere that I can really leave the boat here safely. No, fair enough. If I was in that swell, just running around, I'm just worried about the swell running there when we're going if we get caught. And then getting out of there, we can't get the boat turned.
I didn't initially plan on going in. Kind of went in, wanted to go in to have a look at it, and then kind of sort of had a chance to go for it, so just went for it then, really.
It's not that bad, I'm going to win. Just jump up front, up top, Harry.
Going in with effectively a following sea with the swell behind them, which tends to lift the stern of the boat up, the back of the boat. By doing that, the bow of the boat goes down the way, and as you're driving it into shallow water, you could end up with the bottom of the front of the boat taking the bottom.
Right, in you go, Harry. Like that.
Making it to the bottom of the cliffs, the crew discover the casualty and her husband, who raised the alarm.
Hi there, my name's George.
I don't worry about it.
What have you done?
Slip coming down.
She said that she'd fallen over and she landed on her elbow. I think she thought she'd dislocated her shoulder.
As the only emergency crew members on the scene, George and Harry administer what first aid they can.
Seemed like she was in a lot of pain. She was complaining a lot about her shoulder, any slight movement at all, and like on her, she was really feeling it in her shoulder.
5 minutes later, the Mersey-class lifeboat arrives. Too large to get in any closer, she can only stand by offshore.
For entry, if you think it's dislocated her arm and it's pumped back in, we put a strap on her arm. You take the weight off it and we're giving her oxygen right now. And what we'll have to do is we'll have to assess our situation once we get everyone here. And we'll let you know, over.
Hiya. Hi there.
After walking nearly a mile from the nearest road, the paramedic and Coast Guard team finally arrive on the scene.
There was a lot of agencies there. There was the paramedic, a lot of Coast Guard and Coast Guard officers.
Both sides are asking that we think best to get her out.
The casualty is fast succumbing to shock and needs urgent hospital treatment.
Get her pop out and pop in again.
Novice helm George now faces a big decision. Risk causing further injury and distress by taking her out to the all-weather lifeboat through breaking surf, or scramble a Coast Guard helicopter from Prestwick over 80 miles away on the other side of Scotland to winch her out.
Do you want that or not?
I could have got her on the boat and taken her out there, no bother, but the pain that she was in, it would cause her a lot of pain. Any slight movements, she was hurting, so I made the call I would get a helicopter there instead.
The call for getting the helicopter, yeah, it's always a difficult call to make, because using the helicopter resources is probably the most costly. But for George, as a young helmsman, to make that decision, yeah, it was good on him.
Right, hear that noise? Right.
The casualty 66-year-old Alison often hikes along this stretch of the coastal path with her husband. But this was her first attempt at the chain walk.
I was halfway down the chain and my foot gave away. It just went, and I held on to the chain until I dislocated my shoulder. It's this kind of popping noise. It was like really severe pain. Somebody literally kind of like stabbing you in the shoulder, and let go of the chain. I thumped it on my left-hand side onto the rock as I was coming down. And then the pain is automatically, it's just, it was horrible. That was the worst bit. Of course, then you get the shock comes into your system and you start shaking.
I wasn't too surprised that she'd fallen though, because where it was, it's quite a hard bit part of the chain walk to go.
He introduced me, he says his name is George, and I was like, thank you, George. And he just calmed me down, because I knew that there was somebody out there. I was in the best hands, so I started relaxing.
More paramedics arrive, and with the helicopter inbound, the lifeboat crew retreat a safe distance away.
Cheers,
okay,
Ian.
well, says thanks to you and your crew.
No problem at all.
Cheers, mate.
Alison is winched out of the cove and taken to a waiting ambulance.
It's a lot of spin.
She's then rushed the 20 miles to hospital in Kirkcaldy.
Yeah, it was definitely nice to see her getting picked up and then taken to the ambulance.
Helicopters are so cool. Look at the windows at his feet.
It was my first big boy shout as a helmsman. I was like glad to have like the experience.
Ah, I love you.
I was so relieved to get actually in the helicopter itself. I got to the hospital and I had x-rays, and that's when I discovered I had fractured my arm in 3 places.
After the shout, I felt pretty good. When we got back to the station, the older boys in the crew, just said well done, and that it was good to have their backing, that I'd made the right choice.
I would say to every single one of these men that helped me, just thank you very much. And I'm just sorry that I caused all this problem.
It really does feel like a job well done. Apart from administering the first aid and being first there, George's decision to ask for a helicopter was undoubtedly, absolutely, in my mind, absolutely the right thing to do. And hats off to him. I'm proud of him.
Around the coastline, every one of the thousands of crew members has their own reasons for joining up.
Before I joined, I could hear the klaxon and the sirens going off when they were getting call-outs. Used to see the boys running past all the time. Got the bug, had to join.
I mainly joined the RNLI because I wanted to be the 3rd generation in my family to be involved, because my granddad did it, my dad did it, and now I do it.
How's that then, all right?
Yeah, and it's good.
The families have been involved for many, many years, from father to son to daughter as well. It's a very special feeling to be allowed to be a part of it.
Since joining the crew, I learned a lot about myself, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm ready.
They've brought me a long way, self-confidence. I feel like I'm a better person helping people.
It's just a rewarding thing, give something back to the community, knowing that you've done good. by going out there, saving someone.
Right, line flat.
I once had the privilege of being the first person to catch the hand of a man who thought he was going to his doom. And I found that a very rewarding experience.
In you come, fella.
You grab someone and you save their lives, and that there's a moment, there's an eye contact between you, there's a connection between you and that person. I have you. And that's my reward, and that's something that's very personal to me, and that's inside. And I suppose in a selfish way, that's what I get back from it. It's very special, it's very unique. Not everybody can get on, put on those yellow willies and go to sea.
In North Devon, the fishing village of Appledore sits at the junction of the Tor and Torridge rivers before they flow into Bideford Bay. There's been a lifeboat station here since 1829. Its crews have been awarded 30 medals for gallantry over the years.
You should have seen it.
Has anybody
Nowadays, Appledore has an Atlantic inshore lifeboat and a larger Tamar class, which is kept permanently moored in the estuary.
Dad, come here a minute, look.
Look, there's an enemy in here as well. You see him? Yeah, just there.
Husband and wife team Nick and Sam have over 38 years volunteering between them.
That's the smallest crab ever.
Nick had joined before me. He was on the crew for about 4 or 5 years before I started.
Something like that.
And then about a year after that, we got together.
Sam grew up in the village, and like many other volunteers around the country, she always knew she'd join up.
We used to obviously see the boats going out, hear the Marines going off, and you just knew everybody that was in there. And just the whole spirit of it is amazing. And when you go out and you come back and the whole community just gets together, it's quite a special thing.
Bideford Bay lies where the waters of the Atlantic Ocean meet the fast-flowing tides of the Bristol Channel.
You wouldn't actually know how much the tide does come in, especially on the cliff areas.
Sea levels here can rise up to 8 metres over an unforgiving coastline.
You've got sheer cliffs, jagged rocks, hidden rocks underneath the water, and it definitely keeps you on your toes, yeah.
We can get caught out in it as well, even if we're trying to get somewhere. Oh, sorry, that is actually my pager. Do you mind? Sorry.
An overcast June evening, the Appledore crew are paged. A rising tide has trapped 2 people in a cave 3 miles down the coast. The station's Atlantic inshore lifeboat is launched first.
The tide's coming in and you're stuck in a cave. Depending on how deep or big the cave is, you know, you're gonna have to start getting yourself up out of the water.
En route, the crew learn that the 2 people trapped in the cave are both young teenagers.
Just want to get there as soon as possible. Obviously, with kids, you know that they're going to be more scared. We didn't know how old or if they were hurt. They can get cold, you know, anything can happen, especially when we knew it was over at Westward Ho in that area.
Hartland also proceeding and Appledore IL.
With caves dotted all along this mile stretch of cliffs, and the tide now rising over 3 feet every hour, the pressure's on for the lifeboat crew to locate the 2 teenagers.
It's really hard to spot people, especially if they've got dark clothing on and then they're on a dark background. You can't hear anything because obviously you've got the sea rolling. It can be really difficult to spot people. We've got a couple of little cosy bits in there they could be in. There. Yeah.
Suddenly, something catches the crew's attention.
We spotted a torch in a little cave, which was brilliant. We would have found them on our search pattern, but it would have taken longer by the time we got to them, I reckon.
Just stay where you two, we've got you!
There's no way we're getting in there, not with the rocks.
The crew can see the 2 casualties but can't get to them. In these conditions, it's too risky to get the Atlantic lifeboat any closer to the cave.
They are putting a plan together that they request the casualties.
The main danger was obviously the lack of water and the amount of rocks right in front of the cave, because they were sticking up like fingers. So there was no clear path to get any boat into, really, to start off with.
Get you back out again.
Get back out. It was horrible. You just wanted to get straight in there and get them, but if anything happened to the boat, I mean, that is our saviour at the end of the day. If it got ripped, if we ended up losing the engine, there would be more people that was potentially, you know, sort of like fighting for their lives too.
Cave is not very deep.
Got it! Roger out.
We were told when we were on scene that the female was not a swimmer as well. So, yeah, worst case situation, they'd end up in the water and, you know, potentially drown.
Difficult, wasn't it? It's really difficult, wasn't it? Because they're going to be getting panicked now, aren't they?
Yeah, they are already, you can tell.
The news that one of the teenagers can't swim raises the stakes even more.
Just stay where you are for the moment.
A Coast Guard helicopter has been requested, but can't give an estimated arrival time. Appledore's other lifeboat, a Tamar class, which carries a smaller inflatable boat on board, is also en route.
High tide? Never out yet, is it?
Now it's a race against the tide.
Well, by the time we turned up, it was an hour before high water. So in the cave, obviously, like, there was still another hour of flooding tide to come. So, you know, the situation was only ever going to get worse.
Stay in the cave!
You could hear one of the casualties, and it was awful to hear. You could tell that they was, you know, frightened, so scared.
Stay where you are! ILD, Falmouth, Coast Guard, Roger.
I think it's one of the most frustrating things when you're so close to a casualty, and you can't actually go and get them straight away. You can see that they're scared. You just want to get them out and, you know, get them warm and, you know, calm them down.
To make matters worse, large breaking waves are now rolling straight into the small cave.
Bless them. Keep an eye. Oh, hello.
They were now in the water, essentially. Every time a set of waves came through, casualties were as far back in this small cave as they could be, and they were getting hit by the waves.
That is hitting them now.
Yeah.
Concerned by the increasingly large swell, and with the Tamar lifeboat still 10 minutes away, Nick decides he must risk it and head in.
Hang fast!
Oh, they're going.
Yeah, we're going in, do what we can, or getting as close as we can to do what we need to do.
With the boat anchored, Nick powers backwards through the waves and in towards the cliffs.
If the float fails or the anchor fails, then if you're putting power on the boat, gunning towards rocks, you know, you've got no way of stopping yourself.
The crew must now focus all their efforts on reversing in slowly and steadily to avoid hitting the rocks, while trying not to be distracted by the screams of the teenagers as the cave fills with water.
I think that's pretty much one of the first shouts I've been on where, you know, people are literally screaming at you.
Just keep your eye on them.
Get in.
Yeah, but wait a minute.
Take the body line with you.
Even with the most careful maneuvering, Nick can't get the boat any closer to the cave. To cover the last few meters, crew member Matt is going to have to swim in.
There's no front crawl going on. Basically, you're on your back and you use your arms to kind of scoop yourself and move that way. You can't swim normally.
There's always risks. I mean, because one of the waves could have come in and picked up Matt and chucked him against a rock as well. But obviously, like, that's why we waited until the smaller waves were coming through for him to go in.
I can't imagine standing where they were and being in the water, not being able to swim. I mean, that must be absolutely terrifying.
Matt emerges from the cave carrying the non-swimmer, a teenage girl, first.
The look in her eyes was just amazing. The first thing she said when we pulled her in was thank you. She was so grateful. I've never been so happy to get people in the boat.
Finally, both teenagers are safe. The young couple, Trinity and Dylan, had been at a beach party further up the coast.
We went for a walk across the beach. We got so far and we didn't even realise we'd walked that far. But then we started heading back and we got caught off.
I knew the tide came in really quickly, but I didn't realise that it would come from all the way out to all the way in so quickly. Dylan was stood in front of me with his arms out, taking the whole force of the waves.
The waves literally picked me up and threw me to the other side of the cave several times, and I had to dart back to her before another wave came. And then that wave would probably lift me and throw me again, and it was weird knowing something could move me that easily. And that was the hardest bit for me.
I knew he was really strong, but I didn't realise that he'd be able to basically save my life. The only time that the wave hit me is when it filled up the cave, and it just took me off the ground.
Trinity and Dylan are transferred to the larger boat. They were treated for shock by paramedics waiting on shore.
He's a little hero, to be honest. The quick thinking of the torch, staying where they were, getting as high as they could. Everything he done was perfect, pretty much, and really protective over her.
That was classed as 2 lives saved. Yeah, they'd have been in the water if we hadn't rescued them, or someone else hadn't rescued them. Yeah, 2 lives saved.
It is gratifying knowing that you've helped somebody. At the end of the day, that's all we're here to do, is help people.
It's the most amazing feeling when you actually bring someone in, like that day. I don't know, I feel proud. That's the first thing I said to Nick when I got home. I was like, I'm not just saying it because you're my husband, but I was really proud of you tonight, because he was amazing. He was so calm, so chilled, used his experience. Like, I was very proud of him.
In Anstruther, the lifeboat station runs a regular kids club to help ensure there'll be another generation of volunteers ready to serve their small community.
We're in the heart of the town here in Anstruther, and it's so important to feel that community spirit within you. We do so much in the community, but also we rely on the community so much, and I love that. I've soaked that up, and that part of it gives me a buzz as well.
1, 2, 3, right.
A cold and rainy November day. The Anstruther crew are paged. Within 5 minutes, the station's inshore lifeboat is launched.
Aberdeen Coast Guard, this is Anstruther ILB, Warship service, over.
The information we got was a female and child cut off by the tide at the Driel Burn.
The crew head out of the marina and race to the mouth of the Driel Burn River, just over 700 metres away in the harbour.
Definitely ups the ante when there's children involved. Then you just got to get along there and help as soon as you can.
Tidal cut-offs pose a serious danger. Around half of the people who drown in British waters every year are fully clothed and may never have intended to get wet. Today is a spring tide, which means the water's flooding in faster than any other day this month, and there's still an hour left till high tide.
The sort of concern I had at the time was, had they been in the water? Were they still in the water? Potentially, you know, sort of drowning. You know, you don't know until we actually get there sometimes what it is.
The crew reach the beach just over a minute after launching, but they can't see the woman, her dogs, or the toddler.
19, a total of 3 persons on board. Are they around the corner maybe? Must be, yep. I headed towards Castle Street Beach, went sort of up the burn a wee bit, and then as we came round I could just see them on a wee sort of sandy embankment standing there. Thanks, wife. Does it know?
Aye. To George's surprise, it's a familiar face waiting for them on the beach.
I recognised her almost straight away when I saw her, as it was Jill, yeah. Played rugby with her husband for about 6 years now. Hi, Joe. Hello. You're quite happy, aren't you?
I was trying to wait it out and it just kept coming up.
Yeah. You're coming to the boat with you, man?
You go with Joe.
Well, then, up you come. There we go. Up we go.
Retired nurse Jill was babysitting her friend's 2-year-old son, Hamish, when they were caught on the beach by the incoming tide.
Doggies, yeah.
We'd been there for about half an hour, turned to go round back the corner that we'd came, and I realised that I thought the tide was going out, but it wasn't going out at all. It was getting further and further in.
In charge of someone else's young child, Jill didn't feel it was safe enough to scramble to safety across the wet and slippery rocks.
You want to put the life jacket on, Gus?
I sort of weighed up the risks of crossing the rocks and carrying children and carrying dogs, and I just thought, no, it's not worth the risk. I could slip and fall, hit my head, or drop him, you know. And then the next thing I heard the lifeboat siren going, you could hear it from where I was. Yeah. What are we doing in next, eh?
Once they were on the boat, they were quite happy. Jill was maybe a bit embarrassed that we had to come and get her. I'd probably be embarrassed in that situation, but it could happen to anyone.
Jill, Hamish and the 2 dogs are now safe at the station.
You want to go inside? Let's go and see if it's nice and warm. These are all young guys that I'd known, you know, since childhood, growing up.
Sure we got all washed, nice and warm.
It was funny to see them as, you know, a crew. They did all right, you know. They know what they're doing, so a bit of me was very sort of proud of them.
It's a big boat, eh? It's a big boat.
Hamish is now the biggest lifeboat fan in the world.
Nice and warm in here.
He thinks it's his boat, so I can see him being one of the boys in future.
Watching over the Bristol Channel is the station of Weston-super-Mare. There's been a lifeboat here since 1889, and for good reason. Every summer brings millions of holidaymakers, determined to enjoy everything that this Somerset resort has to offer.
Classic British seaside town, fish and chips, pubs, little train rides. You've got everything that normally you want in a traditional seaside town.
It was the Victorians who first put Weston on the tourist map in 1867. And the jewel in the crown was Burweck Pier, which took day trippers across to Burweck Island.
Full-width promenade, all the Victorians walking up and down there in their Sunday best. It was probably a really nice place to be.
For years, this was the only pier in England that connected the mainland to an island. But after the opening of Weston's Grand Pier, Burweck Island fell into a slow decline.
So you've got this island which in its heyday was amazing, and there's so much life and activity going there, and then today, now, it's a ruin. It is a ruin now.
The Weston lifeboat was based on Burweck Island until 2011. But the crew often find themselves returning to this desolate location. The majority of shouts here are to rescue those who cross the causeway or the Cassie at low tide, unaware that they're putting themselves in mortal danger.
That's one of the most dangerous places in the whole of Weston-super-Mare, is the tide running underneath that pier.
Bristol Channel has the second highest tidal range in the world. We've got a 3-metre change in just an hour.
Nobody checks the tide times. The reality is that once you're cut off on that island, you're there for 12 hours. And I think today, people don't want to wait 12 hours for anything. You know, people want to come back. And so, you know, sometimes people might be a little bit more up for taking a risk when maybe they shouldn't.
The pressure just on your legs alone will sweep you off. 4 to 5 knots coming through there, it's funneled, wants to go in one direction, you're in for a ride.
39-year-old Western crew member Simon has lived locally all his life.
You gonna go and get that one?
He joined the lifeboat crew 6 years ago.
Tut. She hasn't picked up on the noise of the pager, but she wanders around with the pager around the house. And I am waiting for the day where it goes off in her hands.
Simon applied for a volunteer job at the station soon after the death of his mother.
Mum and I talked at great length on what would happen after and sort of how to cope with the bereavement. And just focusing sort of on a direction to go. Having a focus sort of to aim for and possibly sort of give some good back. And that was always the sort of the big belief with my mum, that I would do some good sort of in the community. Mum died in 2011, sort of in December. And quite fitting, 2012, December, I had an email through inviting me back down to the station. So it was almost a year after Mum passed away that the crew opened its doors to me. There's a huge sense of family, there's a huge sense of protection for the crew as well. And they're always there to help. If a crew member loses a loved one, you're always there. There's messages going to each other and they know they've just got to pick the phone up. The support level's fantastic. I see people out and about that have got nobody and they're in a hell of a state. So I'm quite lucky and fortunate that I have Western crew to lean on when needed.
A grey day in March. A man has been spotted crossing over to Burweck Island just as the tide is starting to flood.
Tide was coming in, and it was coming in pretty quick that day. So within the hour or so that he'd been on there, the Cassie was already completely covered.
The Coast Guard's been alerted and the Western crew are paged. The tide has come in so fast that the island is soon cut off and the man is now nowhere to be seen.
That day we launched with 4. So we were going to put 2 onto the island and keep 2 guys on the boat so we could search from the sea as well as on the land to make sure we knew we had everybody.
This year alone, the lifeboat crew have been called out to Burweck 6 times.
Every second does count. The fear when we go to Burweck is that they'll try and make their way across, back across the Cassie.
Things can go from bad to worse really quickly.
Western 0A from Western 06, go ahead, over.
Once safely ashore, the crew face an unusual challenge. The casualty didn't call for help himself and seems rather shy of his rescuers.
Western Lifeboat, number 2, Alpha from Western 06. I believe you heard my comms.
You know when people are cut off by the tide, they'll come and see you of, hi, really sorry, but this person wasn't to be found. So that immediately sort of, oh, right, okay, what could we be going to? A few options run through your mind. One, are they okay? Are they mentally okay? Why aren't they wanting to be found? It's quite hard going underfoot. Slippy rocks, rock pools, slime, seaweed, mud. It's not a lovely sandy beach over there.
Got him! Western Lifeboat number 2, Western Lifeboat Alpha. Just for your information, I found a casualty over.
I didn't get eyes on immediately,
I had a good look around, I couldn't see him, but then Simon shouted across that he'd seen him. I turned to my right, and just as I did, he ducked in behind a rock and decided to hide.
Hello, buddy. There's absolutely zero point trying to hide, my friend. I know you're there. Hello, bud. You right? What's the purpose of being over today?
I'm sorry. I am a tourist.
You're a tourist? Okay, no worries. Don't need to hide from us. You're not going to get home tonight.
I'm not entirely sure why he wanted to hide, to be honest. It's not like we weren't there for anything but good reasons. But it turned out that he thought we were the police, and he was a little bit scared of the repercussions.
Sorry.
No, don't be sorry. Look, it's one of those things.
He told us he was from Hungary and that he was over here visiting friends, and he decided he wanted to come over and take some photos of the islands because he said it was a beautiful place.
Right, bud. You need to come to here. On there.
If somebody hadn't seen him, then he could have very easily spent the night there. And based on what he had, he wasn't really equipped to stay there overnight.
In the days before this shout, nighttime temperatures in Weston dropped as low as -3 degrees.
It would have been a different story sort of 2-3 hours later when he's cold, hungry, wet. Believe it was raining a bit later on that day, so yeah. He would have tried and taken shelter in a derelict building, which isn't good either. So it could have escalated to something far more serious, and you never know what could have happened.
Don't worry.
You're okay, that's the main thing. As long as you're okay.
The guy was really nice. Really thankful. Said thank you numerous times, shook us all by the hand.
He wishes you had his camera going now.
At one point he did say to me, "How much do I owe you?" And we told him that we're a volunteer service and he doesn't owe us a penny.
Is he surprised?
He was incredibly surprised at that.
After a night sheltering off Lundy Island, the crippled coaster Verity was towed to Swansea for repairs. 2 weeks later, her captain Kevin proudly took the ship and her crew back out to sea and completed the journey to Spain.
We come out of Swansea on Valentine's Day, done trials, and off we went, gradually warming her up down to Hartland Point, and had a good look at it as we went past. And then we knew, you know, we don't want to be that close again. If it wasn't for the lifeboats, we'd have gone on the rocks. Probably just smashed the bottom out of her. They saved the day, without a doubt. They got a lot of guts to do what they do. Nah, hell of a gang. Nah, hell of a gang.
They were not very responsive at all. They'd said their goodbyes and they were fully ready to let go and give up.
There's nothing that can prepare you for facing death. You can watch all the movies, you can think you're the hard man, but you still can't prepare yourself for the next one.
Yeah, go ahead.